bring the rest of my group down.
All right, we are live.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Continuing Committee's October 2022 board meeting. Today we're a little short-staffed. We just have the three of us. Myself, Chris Sonsteby. I'm the Director of Organized Play. I'm the current chair this year. We have Charlie Plain, your Director of First Edition, and Maggie Geppert, your XO. Today we'll be running down the department reports. We got a couple new things for new business, a couple things for old business, but I think at this point we can just kind of jump into it. I don't have the agenda up. I'm trying to reload my laptop. Charlie, do you want to just go first for First Edition? Kind of go a little out of order today.
Sure. So First Edition is trucking along. We're actually doing some pretty deep introspection at the moment, trying to figure out, challenge some of our assumptions and figure out if we're on the right path. By and large, I think we are, but I think there's some things for improvement. Monday is going to bring an article with a request for comment from all of you out there. We put together a policy, a new policy about when we're going to make changes like errata and bans and stuff to avoid the situation we had last year, this past year, where we ticked off a lot of European players by changing something 2 weeks before European Continentals and then making it so the American and the European Continentals were different. So we're going to try to address that so that the chances of that happening again are very low. So look for that on Monday. That's the first in a couple different types of initiatives we're going to be pumping out, hopefully before the end of the year, to get feedback on and codify some things that have been sort of informal but not formally codified. In terms of expansions, we did put out Paradise Lost, which was fun. Seems like it's been at least interestingly received. I haven't, it's been, play is still really far down, so it's really hard to tell, but so I saw a couple of cards there show up at Worlds, and be interesting to see how that develops. And our next expansion, which we're calling Nemesis, unsurprisingly, focuses on TNG movies, and it's in the last legs of playtesting, and we're going to do our best to get that out before the end of the year. So you'll have that, and there is more stuff coming. We're doing a lot of behind the scenes reorganizing to get more feedback on more cards without bogging things down so much in process that nothing ever moves forward. We are actively trying to work more with the Facebook groups and the large contingent of players there that want to play Decipher Era. So we're looking at ways that we can support that, and got a couple other projects coming, like our YouTube content, that I'm hoping to bring you more information on early next year. So things are going really well. On the Winnie front, on the Tribbles front, we have a set that's been in testing, although all of our testers lately have been extremely busy. Maybe one or two more cycles of testing on that, and we can look to put that out. I know it's been a long time since we put out any Tribbles content, and we're working on it. So, and that's basically it for First Edition.
I would kind of echo that. The latest set is being well received. We got some players trying to break some cards. I know that some of those are already being looked at, but from Continentals through, obviously it's been a little while since we've had a board meeting, but I've seen a lot more movie era decks, not just the Klingon one, which is pretty popular, but I've seen some Fed ones, and even if I don't really know how those decks work because I'm not playing against them, I think those cards look really cool. I know Matt Hayes played a deck that was movie era, and I just looked at his space line, and his like incidents and stuff. And I was like, I almost want to play that deck just because it looks pretty. It was a really cool looking set of cards. I know that one where it's like the sun. What is that? You must be going around time travel or something, shooting around the sun.
The slingshot effect.
That's what it is. Thank you, Maggie. That one looks cool.
The one thing that's consistently been amazing and is somehow being more amazing is our art team. Johnny Leva does a great job empowering his volunteers to find interesting images, and then he does a good job balancing, making sure everybody gets something in there and everything gets represented. It's pretty. Yeah. Our art has always been amazing, but lately I feel like it's like a science to them. We've got it down to a.
Yep. And I've always joked that I'm the type of player who would play if the cards were blank, but the reality situation, I think, is most of us play because they all look the same. I mean, and in a lot of cases, better than Decipher era cards. Sure, we've got some blurry images of background, one cost Stooges and 2E and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I think the art teams on both sides do an astronomical job. The cards look real. I mean, they look like they were printed at Decipher.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that we will find out over the next couple of months that the movie stuff we had balanced well enough that it's not like you have to play this. There was definitely a feeling after the TOS stuff came out that it was like, if you're not playing this, you're playing wrong. And I think that's still an issue to some degree, but there was definitely not really intentionally, but definitely an upward power creepy type of vibe for a couple blocks. And we actively did a lot of work going into the movie block to stop that. And you'll see that continue as we move forward.
Yeah, growing kind of laterally and sideways instead of up in terms of power.
Yeah, and there's always going to be the best thing. That's nothing we can do. But things that are too many standard deviations above where we're trying to keep things will probably have to get looked at.
Yeah, and as we've learned in the community over the last 2 months, we're going to continue to try to break pack era cards and DS9 expansion cards, and it's not necessarily cards that the CC is creating; it's more or less cards.
Oh, I definitely want to give a huge shout out to the players that came up with the temporal narcosis bullshit. Yep. That was great. So and that was the easiest decision on a ban ever because that card was literally in no decks over the past 5 years. Until they started doing that trick. So it's literally hurting nothing but this broken BS. So. Right.
Well, then before that, you had the countdown lockouts, and now you've got smoke bombs. I mean, people are they're so smarter than me. I always say that. I don't build decks like that. I don't think like that in any game I play. So kudos to everybody who can think like that and come up with those crazy ideas. I don't want to speak for Maggie, but being a participant in Worlds, we both played day 1 and day 2. I thought first edition was pretty well represented. I know that even in the WCT event, you saw some different decks. I think Kazon Battle came back. We had some aggro board players. We had the TOS was there, a smoke bomb deck. And after the dust settled, our winner was a KCA Mirror Quadrant deck, right? Like none of us would have guessed that going into World. So I think the game's in a pretty good place. Maggie, what do you think?
Yeah, I was I had a very amusing Herogen versus Herogen match, day 2 versus Sean O'Reilly. So that was, and we were both playing way different flavors of Herogen. So it was quite interesting to see the mix. And if you all haven't watched me and Michael Van Bremen's Fed TOS versus Fed TOS mirror match on our YouTube channel, please go. Because that was a hell of a game.
Right. Yeah.
How many missions did you duplicate?
All of them.
Right.
We had a 6-mission space line.
That's insanity.
Was FUBAR.
Yeah.
That was one of the craziest seed faces I have ever had to think through.
How soon? And then how soon into the mission seeding did you realize? Oh shit.
Actually, I knew ahead of time because I was checking affiliation, so I could give an affiliation rundown since I was running day 1. And the first couple, I had a double buy. And so I already knew what Michael was playing because I had glanced at one of his games and I said, oh, shit. So at least we were doing different dilemma combos is all I can say.
That's nice. I did want to, Brian Sykes had a comment on our YouTube channel. The TMP stuff seems reasonably balanced, but I think it, along with most things, will be underplayed until TOS gets reined in. And yeah, I agree with that assessment. TOS is still the go-to play. It is a problem we're aware of. We are designing towards it, but there may be a need for balance to step in and issue some more game changes to curb it a little bit. So it was something we'll keep an eye on.
And I think Charlie's alluded to TNG Borg also are kind of getting thought of. I got a serious taste of my own medicine having played TNG Borg at Continentals. Then those games were all broadcast, and then on day one of Worlds, I played mirror matches in my first two actual games, round 3 and round 4. To Maggie's point, those are disgusting. It feels like you're kissing your sister when you're duplicating all your missions. And in those mirror matches, it kind of feels like who goes first is probably going to win. And that's what happened in both of my games. Both of them went, I think, 170. But yeah, I think it bears repeating that those two decks, I think people were kind of ready for day 2. And we saw a lot of it on day 1, and then they all disappeared for day 2. Day 2 had a very different vibe. Even
I looked briefly. I haven't really diving into it. Nobody tried Empok Nor's trick, right? Or did somebody try to play it? So.
No, not that I saw.
Yeah, it seemed really risky to try to pull off. I know there are still people who wish we had banned something to make it, not something you had to maybe deal with, but
Maggie can probably speak to it, but everybody I played with on day 2 had a ref pile. I mean, and I think that ref piles by themselves are going to kill that deck. So I think it was kind of this, unknown kind of, or should say, unspoken rule that no one was going to let that beat them at Worlds Day 2, and instead they just lost to decks they did not even expect to see, which was my case anyway.
Well, that's more interesting. So,
and I think that also speaks to day 2. I don't know exactly what happened over day 2 of TUI. I remember Michael kind of just turning to Ken at one point and going, I did not expect to see 5-space Voyager today. Just people, you grab something that you hope will do well and will be unexpected, and you might have a good result.
Yeah, definitely.
Maggie, I apologize. I forgot the department reports. You actually do start. So why don't you go now?
Hey, by the way, TF, in case you can't see, Chris Charks joined us. Hi, TJ.
Hi, sorry for being late. I was busy with solving my sister's flat, and there was a little bit more traffic than expected.
Not a problem, TJ. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Maggie, you're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Floating in space, apparently.
Yes, this is what I get for being in the car. So we are. So what I've been working on, just starting to think about period of review, because that's coming up at the end of the year. And I think basically until we get the reward store set up, and because we talked a lot about membership with that, until the reward store gets set up, I don't think we're going to change anything about the membership rules between now and the next period of review.
And we lost her. So.
Oh well, we can come back to her. TJ, I can go if you need a little time to get ready. We can jump it all out of order. It's totally fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. Oh. I can do it, but you can.
Okay.
Go on.
Go ahead then.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Okay.
that. My brother tried to call me, and
oh, never mind.
I thought I was hanging up on him and not hanging up on you guys.
Oh wow, we feel loved, Maggie. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
So,
Please, Maggie.
sorry to finish out my report. So that's the only thing that I've been thinking about. I've been doing lots of other things, trying to get all of the. So I have the last set of people that need to have their orders put into the promenade for March Madness. That's the folks who helped seed March Madness. So as soon as I have that info, as soon as I get that info, into those orders into the promenade, hopefully Brian will be able to send them out. But we're a little behind on getting those prizes out. So those of you who are owed a borderless promo, we're in a bit of a pickle because some people just get borderless. Some people have a combo of some regular promos and borderless, but our warehouse in San Diego still has all the border promos. We're trying to get him to send them our way. I don't know where Brian is on that. All right, so I'm going to close out my report because my brother-in-law keeps calling me. So, but I've done stuff, but not as much as I should have.
Welcome to 2022.
Right. Thank you, Maggie, and you can just jump back in whenever you have time or not. I do want to echo Maggie's a little bit being gracious. She did a lot for Worlds. If you were not there or kind of in the behind the scenes, Maggie ordered all the trophies. Maggie worked with our printer to figure out how those trophies were going to look. Obviously compiled them, ran tournaments, had prizes. We kind of ran Worlds this year as a TD by committee because I felt personally that no one should have to sit out. And I know that even if it is a high level tournament, I don't really expect anyone associated with the continuing committee or organized play to be angle shooting or cheating. And with multiple TDs who are doing pairings and doing scorings and everything else, it'd be very, very difficult, I think, to do so. So Maggie and I kind of made that decision together that we would run and play, at least in first edition, and that made it even. So that was also part of the decision, was we didn't want to have an odd number of players and have somebody sitting out every round at Worlds if we could avoid it. But yeah, then I actually ran half of day 2 of second edition when I got to the store, and the other folks did a great job of making sure the second edition day 2 started just fine without me there. So I think on that note, TJ, why don't you go through your second edition report?
Yes, okay. What's coming up in second edition? What's going on in second edition? Yeah, we prepared some errata being hosted as today on November the 7th, and I will prepare an article tomorrow and will host it as soon as possible. It is not big errata, not concerning people. The most interesting errata we are working on is errating Tricia Jenkins. Tricia Jenkins was the Voyager guy who allows you to get 5 additional counters, and in Worlds it turned out, in theory, it also was a deal that you can attempt the mission in the first round when you spend 5 additional counters. So we errated her and see how the response is. This will show up on November 7th. And the other, I think, more or less interesting card is the Seen and the Unseen, which that triggers non-aligned affiliation and normally returns. So for Tricia Jenkins, we worked on the cost, and for the Seen and the Unseen, we worked on and cut the dilemma returns to the opponent's dilemma pile, to opponent's dilemma pile. That the most interesting errata, and for the other there will be a report. And for the upcoming sets, we changed a little bit. Let me see. So normally it was planned to have Project Justice, a set about the cut files from TUI. And this was expected to be the next set, but to keep the timeline for the 15th anniversary for TrekCC, the next set to come is Project Crystal. It's a boutique set, and we are hopefully going to final testing on November the 7th with the set. I think it's 18 cards. So we go into testing with, I suppose, 21 cards. That will be the next set showing up. I have to coordinate a little bit with Charlie. And then we have Project Crystal. That's also a rainbow set, a boutique set. I think it's around 27 cards, and it is in play testing and has done final play testing. But because we have to get the 15th to hold the 15th anniversary line, it will be the second in line. So first is the 15th anniversary set, and then it's Crystal. Then we have the Weedians, where I have to up to date myself these days. Then we have Weedians will hopefully go to testing somewhere in the first quarter, middle of next year. So between that, we have Shackleton. This is a set for missions. So anniversary set first, then Justice, that is in playtesting. Shackleton, where I have had a look at, and it sounds very good. Shackleton is about missions. Then we have a set about compensating, getting away the Torse and Earth icon from cards that have both. We have a set created that compensates a little bit those cards that is called Project Hamlet. That is on the to-do list. And then we have a community set 2, where we have some cards from the community 1 that we didn't have a chance to work on, and have a set with ships and commanders, which will be a rainbow set about ships for where we have commanders in second edition, and ships where we do not have a commander. This is a rainbow set, and it will be filled up with cards from the community that we didn't have had a chance to look at. Yeah, that's all from TUI side. And there will be 2 articles. So one about the errata and one about the projects next week. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Thanks, TJ. For communications, obviously we're still absent a director, and I apologize on behalf of the board. We're kind of a little bit, I think, crossed up on who's on first regarding who's going to post this article and get that search kickstarted. I'm going to talk to Maggie and just make sure I'm not stepping on her toes, and one of us will get an article up hopefully this week, to kind of just put out the vibe of, if anybody is interested in this position, please respond. And if we get multiple applicants, then we can certainly do interviews and kind of just run down. I personally don't want this to be a long drawn out process. I think it's been too long without a communications director. And hopefully that can be as simple as, like I said, posting an article, and maybe we get 1, maybe we get 2 applicants. And that, obviously if we get more, that'd be great, but we're just hoping we get 1. Let's just start there, right? So, but otherwise, in terms of the communication side, Maggie alluded to, Daniel did a terrific job of updating Twitter and our YouTube channel with videos and throughout Worlds Weekend and pictures and all of those things. A number of those games are up on the YouTube channel. If you want to see how bad I play, feel free to watch one of my games and count how many mistakes you see, because I'm guessing each game I probably made a dozen or so. Get a little nervous when I'm on camera, is what we learned this weekend last weekend down in Orlando. But otherwise, a lot of those games are online, and if you want to see the best players in the world playing, top level decks, whether it's day 1, day 2, or either game. Or even Tribbles. If you want to see me get skipped about 20 times by Maggie's kid, you can watch that game too. That was fun. But that's all I think we have for the communication side. Jumping down to ops, Brian Chafflin unfortunately could not join us today. He indicated that on the ops side of the house, there's some programming things going on in the backside. They're working again on that reward store. And that due to some logistical issues, the shipping is a little bit further behind than he had planned to have it be. But he will continue to work on that throughout November. Any questions from either of you, TJ or Charlie, on those 2 sides?
No,
Well,
but I do have a.
I can say this morning, Marcus was working on making the site more mobile friendly and responsive, and broke things and then fixed things. So thank you, Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus is a wizard. I happened to just catch his attention very briefly this week and said, "Hey, clearly somebody in my player group is going to kickstart our league again. Can you turn that league on?" And within minutes, he had not only turned mine on, but he turned on, I think, half a dozen other ones. I don't know how that works, but I was very happy to see that all these leagues have already populated back up. So thank you again, Marcus, and obviously Brian, for all your hard work on the tech side of the house.
There is a question in the YouTube chat for Chark. Brian Sykes wants to know what the process is for submitting ideas for the second community set, and that he felt it wasn't well communicated for the first one.
Yeah, so we are working on that. We have now a little bit experience from the first set. So I will talk with Richard and the other guys how to make it run. We are not sure how to do it. We have to make it easier, more visible for everyone. We are working on it, and I can host an article how we do it. Yeah, now we have a kind of basic set. We are working what we want to combine with a community set. We have to make things more in how do you say, more clear for everyone. And I intend to host an article for it so that it is clear for everyone. It is a little bit far from the timeline, so it's not one of the next sets. So I will host an article first. People can give me ideas, and it will be a little bit different from the first version of the community set. We have some cards we have from the first set we want to use, but then I will change the what do we say, modus operandi. The modus operandi, how we want to do it, because it is working with these community set. It's very time challenging for all the people involved. We make it more transparent for everyone, and I will host an article for that. So, and everybody can contact me, and I think about how we can make it. It will be a little bit different. For the first community set, the people were under the expecting they give a card, and we give it one-to-one. We give it one-to-one to play testing or something like that. That will definitely not be the way how it works. We are thinking about having a way to say, okay, give us ideas to work with, maybe more concrete. I have to figure out. I will host an article, so let everybody know how it works. So Brian can contact me. Brian Armers can contact me on any time, and as soon as I know how we will do it, I will host an article and let everybody know. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I think it's my turn, right? Organized play. Kind of like a fireworks display. It seemed like the last 2 months we've had a lot of big time tournaments that have happened. In brief, I can say that we had the Masters in New York and Brooklyn, Nationals in Kentucky, online regionals, regionals in Austria, British Nationals, Florida had some regionals, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the local scene in Alabama and Oklahoma. We had some local tournaments there. And the giant elephant in the room, we had Worlds. We hosted Worlds down in Orlando. As mentioned earlier, that was kind of a team effort by the Florida crew, Daniel and Eric and Sean and everybody down there, in tandem with Maggie, myself, and the organized play guys, Michael and John. And I feel like, generally speaking, that was a pretty big success, despite the fact that we kind of baked. Maggie knows that we didn't have any air conditioning in the store while we were down there, I think courtesy of the hurricane. So that was a little hot, but otherwise.
I was way okay with that.
Yeah, Maggie and I.
But I know nobody else was.
You and I were fine. I think I sweat a little bit, but I'm always cold.
I mean, given how many times we've played at Gen Con and it's been, negative a million degrees, and we're right under the AC vent, and they've got it cranked.
Yep.
That it's only fair that every now and then we get a tournament where you got some sweaty Yes.
Oh yeah, I brought my sweatshirt to the store, despite the fact that it was 85 degrees that morning when we left left the hotel, and then I got there and I was like, "Holy shit, it's 90 degrees in the store." So yeah, Maggie and I we're just fine with how warm it is, but not everybody was. But again, thank you everybody for being troopers and playing through the pain, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah, we've had our world championships, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're done yet. We've got a number of big time tournaments that are coming up. We got German nationals coming up. We've got online masters coming up, and if that's not enough, you got your local leagues, local tournaments, and online kind of just everyday run of the mill monthly tournaments online. So plenty of opportunities to play if you are interested in playing from now through the end of December, like I am now that life's starting to kind of calm down and in Minnesota it gets cold this time of year. I will be jumping online and running tournaments and playing some more. Maggie, I really want to run another ID draft sidebar. So, or maybe I want to play in one. I don't know if I want to run one. You and I can talk about that. But I feel like
yeah, I'm in. Whatever.
I feel like I'm missing ID draft right now. I need my fix. So we'll obviously stay tuned for that. As many of you know, I'm a numbers guy. I come from a banking background, and I did check today that the attendance for both of our primary games, first edition and second edition, is actually right in line with where they were at last year in terms of different players playing events. We're very close, almost I would say hanging tough is I guess the term. They're right around the same this year as it was last year now. And we're still a little bit short of where we were in 2019, but I think that's to be expected after 2 years of a pandemic, and the year's not over yet. So ideally we could pass those figures this year by the end of the year, past last year's numbers. I think that'd be terrific to see the kind of rebound coming around. The last thing I have to report, and I don't want to steal Patty's thunder, but stay tuned. It sounds like our World's venue for next year is getting nailed down. My understanding is he has reserved the spot for where it's going to be hosted, and we got a date nailed down. But again, just stay tuned for that. I don't want to steal his thunder. That should be coming out soon, I believe. He's all over it. He's been PMing me constantly this week. So that kind of covers organized play. Financial status. Justin's not on, right? So what did he say earlier? I got to go find it.
He said he's on vacation. When he gets back, he'll post a quarterly update.
Okay. And from a numbers standpoint, I think we're doing okay, right? For dollars and cents. I know we're probably in the black still, right?
I just saw him post transfer money from PayPal to the bank account. So, and it was a hefty chunk of dough. So he did that maybe about a month ago, I want to say. Maybe a little less.
We do have some upcoming expenses, like we have to order all the Year of the Ferengi stuff, which I should probably get Andrea to make.
Yeah, I really do want to do a set of league promos. I keep that keeps getting on my to-do list to send. Can we ask Charlie? I believe I formally asked that from you, and I did ask for it from second edition, and I haven't gotten it yet. I need to follow back around with them.
There was a reason it wasn't done. I'll have to go look into it because it slipped off my radar, obviously. I'll figure out what I can figure out for you.
Yeah, we'll talk offline, but I'd love to get those Tribbles errata as the league kit for Tribbles this year, and reprint Series B and Series 3, I think, are what I wanted to get from first edition and second edition.
That sounds great. Were those the ones that weren't foiled? I can't remember, but once upon a time, the TV side at least, they were
A and B, A and B and 1 and 2 weren't foiled. I know for 2E it was 1, 2, and 4 that weren't foiled.
Okay.
I think it was A and B that weren't foiled for 1E, but I might be wrong.
Series 3 had foils, but it would be like they were on the rainbow paper, and you would get like 2 foil, and then the rest of the kit was non-foil, and it was at random which ones you would get.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the olden days, right? Like those first AIs were at what cost and hard time, I think, at the time. Those would be, and I don't remember ever seeing those as a foil in my entire
Yeah, they weren't. They
tenure
weren't.
now.
Those that was when the CC printed the AIs on plain paper and then sent them to you, and you cut them out and pasted them on backers yourselves in the early days.
Wow.
Because I
Okay.
had
Yeah.
I remember getting the sheet for the regional in 2009. Yeah, it would have been 2009. The Wharf regional promo. And so I had like a couple sitting around, and somebody wanted to trade me for one of them. So I sent them one of them. I put it on a card, and he's like, "This looks like shit. This is a fake. This is, you couldn't I'm like, well, dude, here's a little history.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I'll send you something different." But yeah. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I remember not really being a super fan of the CC's new sets, and then when Caleb ran a tournament, and I think I won an at Lacoste that I didn't even own. I was like, well, maybe this is okay. So to get an at Lacoste in foil, I think in the future would be cool. But yeah, good deal.
All right.
Go ahead, Maggie.
Oh no. Yeah. So that's something that Charlie and I will talk about with the league promos.
Okay.
So what's next?
I'm just glad to see league interest coming back. And I know last year league participation was down, but I think half a dozen leagues have already renewed for this year. And I'm hoping we can get a couple of brand new ones with some of these newer play groups that have cropped up in the last year or so. Jumping down to old business, it's mostly just a reminder. If you are at all interested in running a high level tournament in 2023, whether that's online, locally, we've had some internal conversations. There's some interest in some type of event out in the Seattle and Vancouver area. They haven't had one in a couple of years, given the pandemic and the inability to cross the border for their players. But otherwise, I think it's kind of wide open. And I know that, as we always say, please reach out to your local continental coordinator, whether that's John for online, Michael for North America, or Jules for Europe. If you have any interest in running a high level tournament, whether that's a nationals, masters, continentals, or even just your, run of the mill regional, we can certainly use that information earlier rather than later. So please contact them, because it kind of sucks when we just have to assign them out like we did a little bit over the last couple of years. I've already touched on the search for the new communications director, but to reiterate, now that Maggie's back with us, either her or I will try to get an article up this week, just soliciting applications for that. And depending on how many people we get to apply, we might do some interviews, but ideally we're just hoping for a single applicant, right? Before we worry about how we're going to figure out who that person ultimately will be. Anything else you want to add on that, on either of those things? Maggie or Charlie or TJ?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm fine.
All right. The last thing on the agenda is for new business is just the Chairs Challenge raffle drawing. I've already started looking at decks that have qualified for that, and I did this week. I reached out to Jared Hoffman and Matthew McLean, indicating that they had played in person, and they will be at Worlds, and they will qualify for a special prize, which is a lore from their respective game. I'm going to send them one of my Fajo collections and one of my Necessary Evil lores, along with some other swag, just kind of as a thank you for playing the Chairs Challenge in person down in Orlando. Otherwise, we're going to be collecting all of those entries for the in-person tournaments that ran the week ahead of Worlds, during Worlds, and the week after. And more to the point, we have a lot of, or I think at least 2, maybe more, online events that are still ongoing. And those obviously will still qualify. It's just a matter of waiting for those events to finish and deck lists to get published before we kind of memorialize how many people qualified for those drawings and who all will get those super cool foils. Maggie, do you have anybody playing online Tribbles that qualified?
Yeah, I mean, we had at least 2 Tribbles tournaments that were within the window. I don't know if any, and I think some of the people who played built decks that qualified. I kind of remember Matt Zeno saying that he played a deck that qualified for the challenge. I don't remember off the top of my head though.
Okay. Be curious. I'll go look at that. I'm curious to see how that did, because that was what, mutate, replicate, clone or something. I think it was a 3.
Could have been. He's been playing a Fizbin mutate deck the last couple of weeks, so that might have been it.
Oh, that's dirty. I hadn't thought about putting those in there. He's smarter than I am. That runs through the agenda. We did not approve the minutes at the start, mainly because we didn't have a quorum. I suppose we could approve them now if a few folks have read the minutes. We could speak to that.
Well, we can just do it next time.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Apparently, you said the wrong Matthew, by the way. It was Matthew McCulpin, not Matthew McLean.
Well, shit. All right, I'm bad with people named Matt. I know like 7 in person. Does that count? But I know a lot of people named Matt. Well, I'm glad that it's Matthew McCulpin. Aren't they both in Florida too? That's really fair. I call BS. They both live in Florida.
They are both in Florida.
That's not fair.
Poor Matt McLean had to miss first edition because some woman hit his car like while he was at the stoplight trying to pull into the store.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize to Matthew McCulpin. Yes, he is our winner of the 1E lore. And now I got to put more swag in his envelope because I named the wrong person. Damn it. All right. Maybe he'll get one of my borderless foils if I have one. I'll have to go look. Anything else for the board meeting? Anyone kind of just open floor? I tend to end all of my meetings that way. Are there any comments in the threads or comments on the YouTube channel?
I've brought up everything as I've seen it, so we can vamp for a minute since there's a lag. But
I will check for a sec. I will check. I don't see anything in Discord.
Okay.
didn't check the forums. Let me check the forum. Nope, nothing there.
Okay. Do either of you 3 folks have anything else you want to add?
No, I move to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second.
All righty. Sounds like we